But I think Sputnik might be committed to India, which, if that's the case, this is going to be a very interesting matchup indeed.
Yeah. Although I think Prince of Kabul may have specifically practiced something for this matchup. So because
It could be. It could be. Dutch is certainly an interesting civilization to pick against India.
yeah, but it is definitely one of like if given some time, 8 or 10 minutes, then it is definitely one of the best civilizations mid game on
Right.
ESOC patch.
Right. I mean, Dutch has always had a very significant power jump when they're in the early Fortress Age. Although they do suffer a little bit in the Second Age and in the late game, but they certainly have that big power spike.
You have the UI installed?
What was that?
You have the UI installed?
Ah, I see. I see. Yeah, it looks like 100 would start for the Dutch player. Um, not exactly the worst because Dutch doesn't mind having that extra coin, seeing as their villagers do cost coin. Both picking up, well, Sputnik picking up 50 coin, Prince of Kabul picking up 40 coin, respectively. The small muskrat treasures within their base. But if I may ask, what do you think is the most important part for the Dutch player in this matchup against India, in your opinion?
Uh, I think it starts right from age one. He probably should use his envoy and try to delay the age up from the India player. That is, deny him the Agra somehow if possible. And the interesting thing on this map is that you have some very good scout treasures or uh, the native treasures or very good tomahawk like here, or you have Cherokee or a native scout here. So maybe get those treasures early and try to kill the forward villager or deny him Agra, and that would give you enough time to age up or go to H3. And once you are H3, then you have some very powerful shipments like 9 rioters and 8 skirmishers, which should help you stabilize. And from that, Dutch eco just outscales because of good amount of XP from the banks and increased bank limits. So
Wow,
uh,
two. That was an excellent point. And while you were elaborating on that, we had two very significant treasure pickups. The Dutch player picking up 80 food, which is great for him, as the Dutch already have a pretty quick age up, and that's just going to help. And then the India player also picking up a settler. So, two very good treasures for each player.
yeah. And a native scout for the Dutch player is Prince of Kabul. So this is going to be very good if he scouts this villager and tries to kill it or just blocks the Agra. But
Right, and the native scout, is certainly a very valuable tool. Even even into the second and third ages, as you can kind of um, set them up outside of your opponent's base, and you can really use it to effectively keep track of what your opponent's doing, what units they're making, what strategy they're employing. So, very good pickup for the Dutch player. Um, but yeah, certainly pretty standard stuff so far. Good herding by both players. Um,
so
so
I
yeah,
would like
pretty.
to, yeah, I would like to just say something about the players here. I'm not exactly sure who Sputnik is, but from what I've researched him or what I've seen him, he's a strong, solid PR30 player. Uh,
Mhm.
The thing is that Prince of Kabul on the opposite end of the map is one of the best supremacy players to ever play this game. Uh, Probably PR 40 plus, I would
Right,
say.
right. So, oh, but look at this. It looks like the Dutch player has come across this settler.
Yeah.
Interesting that Sputnik kept that settler in the middle gathering wood. Do you think that gives a hint that there might be some? Oh, and there it is. I think that's our answer right there.
Yeah, but this village is probably going to go down. He,
Hmm.
he should
Well,
just let
I think
the native scout, I think, attack and uh,
yeah.
switch the envoy back.
Whether that settler goes down or not, this is excellent by Prince of Kabul because it really delays the ability of this wonder to go up, and it, to delay this age top time for the Dutch player is going to be hugely beneficial.
Yeah. So it's one of the a personal strategy I like to do against India, specifically when India doesn't do 10 out of 10. Uh, when I'm playing Dutch, that is, you normally age up like more than 1 minute before India player is even age two. So I like to send 8 pikes as the first shipment and make a barracks and make 10 more pikes. So by the time India makes 5 sepoys or ship 5 sepoys, Agra is basically dead. So that
Right.
gives a huge bonus to the Dutch player. This is something I
Right.
like
And
to
I
do.
Yeah, and that's certainly an effective strategy. I just want to point out how grim um, the position already kind of looks for India. You know, the Dutch player is well into the second age, and Sputnik just only getting that first villager on the Wonder. But even now, look at this army by the Dutch player, the Bear, the Native American Scout, the Envoy, what plus the Explorer, just really doing a good job of guarding that Wonder, making sure it goes up as slow as possible. And this is going to be a huge advantage for the Dutch player, especially since, you know, the Dutch is looking to get into the fortress age without being pressured too much. And certainly, I think he'll be able to accomplish that here, you know, very efficiently.
Yeah. So still no military building for the Dutch player here, and I think 5 minutes is still a pretty good age of time for India because when you're building Agra, like Maito pointed out last game, you can just start making units as soon as you're age two, and Dutch player still doesn't have any military buildings, so he might be
Right.
able to pressure the Dutch player here. But from the looks of it and from the macro that Prince of Kabul has, he doesn't seem to have an intention of making any military units right now. He was probably going to plop down a
Right.
third bank right now.
Right. And I certainly think that that's not a bad strategy. I mean, the two Sepoy are coming down the map. You know, they can cause a little bit of a disturbance, but I just want to point out this is something that really shows the high level of Principal Kabul here, using his buildings as a very effective wall, kind of blocking up his villagers gathering on these hunts. He's done a good job herding, and it's very effective. Putting down the barracks here, so we could see some skirms coming out, but certainly a good job by Prince of Kabul to kind of block off his town here. And there
And
comes the bank
bank
wagon.
wagon. So it's a pretty
Yep.
standard reversion build for the Dutch. Send 700 wood, make 3 banks, make either stable or barracks, and get the fourth bank from the bank wagon.
Right. It's been you know, exemplified by the fact that you know, Sputnik, this pressure is coming so late, and it's not overly significant. He's got, you know, 2 Sepoy and 4 Gurkha. I mean, that's not very threatening. I mean, if you effectively use town center fire, and I mean, if you have to, you can call the militiamen, and you can easily ward off this pressure. Plus, the 5 skirms just coming out now, so should be able to easily ward off this pressure by the Indian player.
I really don't think that India player is trying to pressure here because his second shipment or the first shipment in H2 was 600 wood. So he's looking for some kind of boom build here because he already has got a trading post and his explorers are on the second trading post. So
Very interesting. If we look at the economic unit population recalculated, it is 37 to 25 in favor of the Dutch player. So, I mean, certainly a pretty big advantage here. You know, the Dutch player now putting down a market, gathering more wood. Although we are going to have a little bit of a Gurkha raid here. This is going to, ooh, he's going to take out one villager there. So, an effective raid there.
yeah,
And
but
that is a lot of Gurkhas, but more skirmishers coming out now. And
yeah,
a fifth bank coming down. Interesting.
I think this is a pretty standard. I won't say standard, but one of the famous builds on ESOC patch. Like I would probably skip one bank wagon and ship 600 wood and make a fourth and fifth bank, and then just trade
Hmm.
some coin for houses. But
Yeah, I mean, the India player is disrupting the Dutch's economy, you know, somewhat, but he has lost both of his elephants, so he's not going to be able to effectively build more trading posts unless he uses his villagers. And he lost quite a few Gurkha, lost his Sepoy, and the Dutch player did get the fifth bank up. And you know, I just want to quick check what the Dutch player doesn't have any market upgrades yet. Interestingly enough, but is getting his hunting dogs now.
I don't think that the market is for taking the market upgrades, because since you have four banks which gather like almost four villages with lesser mines, you don't really need market upgrades so early on in the game with Dutch players. It's probably basically just to buy, uh, I mean, to buy wood to make houses.
And I mean, that's an effective way to use that excess coin. But certainly, and did send the 8 pike here, which is an interesting shipment. Not usually an incredibly effective shipment, but he's already sent, his wood crates, um, his
I think it,
his bank wagons, and look at these Imperial Hussar and these Soar on the map. So maybe not a bad shipment after all.
Yeah, I think it is a very, I mean, if you're aging up so late at 9 minutes with Dutch, then shipping 8 pikes is very necessary, because the India player has access to 4 sowers, and those 4 sowers alone can kill equal to like 20 skirmishers, and then you are just idled in the down center, which you do not want. So I think 8 shipment is not an effective shipment, but definitely a good choice at this point.
And that's a very good point. Dutch player certainly doesn't want to be fighting India in the second age, and if he can get to the point where he can get out his Reuters before he has to deal with this big massive cav, although I don't know if he's going to be able to, just getting to that third age, but no Reuters are on the way yet, and and I don't think 8 pikes are going to be enough, and this could be ugly, but out come the Minutemen, might be able to hold it off, but still, that's a pretty scary massive cav.
Yeah. Uh,
Ooh,
oh,
this isn't looking terribly good for the Dutch player. Still a lot of cav left alive. The pikes are nearly dead,
yeah.
and he's going to lose all these skirmishers here.
Yeah, and these villages specifically are very unsafe here right now. He might lose like 10 or 15 villages if something doesn't happen right now for him. I think Prince of
Right,
Kabul is going to send 7 or 9 rioters, whatever shipment. I
right.
think
But at
9
the
rioters.
same time, yes, he has the Reuters out now, but with all of these Gurkha left and no skirmishers to back them up, they're not going to be overly effective. But the India player deciding to retreat from the base, apparently those envoys
Yeah.
must have really intimidated him, scared him off. Um, but I would say a pretty good trade there by the Indian player.
Four hussars coming in for the.
Ooh, gonna lose a Reuter there. Gonna lose 2 Reuters there without really gaining anything. Not exactly the trade you want, but I mean he does have, these are only second age Hussar, but does have some Reuters mixed in, and I don't know. The calculated unit population is only 45 to 44, and the camel attack shipment has come in, so maybe India's not sitting too bad after all.
I'm not really sure why India's actually going back, because he was having like 4 hussars and 5 rioters, and with this army, India would have easily cleared that up. There was like really no reason to go back and give Dutch player the time to remass. So
Certainly.
it's a poor choice from India player in my opinion.
Certainly,
And
and splitting off his Gurkhas from his main cav mass now, which is interesting.
and and this is going
But
to cost him like 15 ideal villagers till he can kill this units.
interesting. Nice little cav right here in the back by the Dutch player.
Yeah, and India player lost 2 villages there. So
Gonna lose a newly made villager. That always is a bummer. But
yeah.
look at this, the Dutch player. Look at the back of his base. Look at how many idle vills he has here. There's not a lot of food left. And these next hunts are going to be in very, very precarious positions. So the Dutch players really got to move out soon or risk being starved out.
I think Dutch player is fine right now, and uh, I would probably even say that Dutch player is in a good spot right now, because he still has access to some of the good shipments like 9 rioters and 8 skirmishers, and unless and until India player can make something happen right now, the economic advantage to the Dutch player is simply going to increase over time, because of the fact that even 5 hussars from Dutch player can idle 15 to 20 villages of India, while 20 villages which um, should be gathering coin for Dutch player are simply banks, and they're completely safe and they're gathering without getting idled. So
Right, and I think you have a good point here. The Dutch power spike is really starting to take effect. More skirmishers out on the map. The Reuter mass is starting to grow, and the Indian army not as scary as it once was. I mean, there is still plenty of Gurkha, still a couple of those Imperial Hussar, but the Dutch players certainly. And look at all of these reinforcing skirmishers plus this Reuter mass. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Certainly, Dutch really starting to gain some traction.
And we have to note here that the Dutch army is a veteran army, while India is still H2 army. So
that's very true. That's very true. So these Reuters are going to be able to melt through these SOAR relatively quickly, and you know, the last of these Imperial Hussars going down, and then it's just going to be H2 Gurkha versus H3 skirmishers, which is certainly not going to be a fight the Indian player wants to take. And the Dutch player dealing with that cav mass pretty significantly and pretty decisively. So, like you said, it's really starting to swing in the Dutch player's favor.
yep.
But still, you know, the Indian player does have quite a presence here in the middle of the map. This agrifort, this consulate, this barracks, plus this caravanesi. You know, still a lot of infrastructure to get here too, and he doesn't really have good siege units at the moment.
Yeah, but Thusama is going to simply do a fine job because India player has kind of no counter army to this. He has a few swords, but Prince of Kabul has a lot of Rathamas, and since
Yeah,
they're
against this many Reuters.
yeah, and camels are not that good even with the cards, and since they're just H2 units now, they're
right, and the Dutch player doesn't have those effective falconet shipments, but yeah, certainly the Dutch player continuing to push, continuing to get those good trades with those H3 Reuters against the H2 SOARs. What does the Indian player do from here? Does he try to age up?
I'm not. I don't think that Indian player is in a position to age up. Uh, uh, while if I were to speak very bluntly, I would say that this is probably game for Indian player right now because he's going to lose Agra and he simply doesn't have enough mass to deal with Dutch. And Dutch at this point in H3 is extremely, or I would say very strong right now. And even if India manages to outmass the Dutch army is simply superior in terms of statistics because of being H3 units against H2 units. So not much India can do here unless he gets some magically or some extraordinary fight here against Prince of Kabul, like Prince of Kabul sending 20 rioters on a raid and all the skirmishers getting caught.
Oh, but out come the Tiger Claws. Could be pretty effective, but more Reuters on the way. And oh, they are dealing with those skirmishers relatively well. I mean, this is a pretty good trade for India, although losing those Tiger Claws relatively quickly to the Reuters, and lost all of his SOARs once again. So maybe not as effective as they looked initially. But I mean, he has weakened the skirmisher mass of the Dutch player by a significant margin.
Yeah, and he still has 5 Tiger Claws alive. So yeah, I definitely wasn't expecting this. I probably forgot to see the decks, but uh, yeah. So this Tiger Pop, that is exactly what I was saying, that you need something extraordinary. So these Tiger Claws were extraordinary, and they did manage to lower the Dutch mass, but the thing here is to make some damage here to the Dutch player, which India had still not managed to do. Dutch player has like lost 30 skirmishes, but his entire eco is intact. He still has 5 banks gathering. So
I am a bit worried about how many Dutch villagers are on berries at the moment. Plus, look at all these. Well, they were idle, but you know the coin mines are getting a little bit low. The Dutch player does really have to start expanding out of the space. Does have veteran hussars up now, plus the steel traps upgrade, plus the placer mines upgrade. Although the Indian player is starting to repair this agrifort.
yep.
So I mean, certainly the Dutch player, you know, is still in a pretty good position, but he really needs to expand out and protect those resources and grab more resources, because if these coin mines run out and these hunts run out, it's certainly not going to be good news for Prince of Kabul.
Yeah, definitely. But I just like the ability of the Dutch player to simply remark so fast. I mean, Like a minute ago he lost 30 skirmishes, but now if you look at it, he has almost same amount of skirmishes, but 10 extra hussars. So
Yeah, this is an incredibly scary Dutch army. I mean, these 10 veteran hussars plus all of these Reuters, plus he's already, partially rebuilt his skirmisher mass, and these H2 Gurkhas and, these few Zambreks that he has built, not going to save this Agrafort. And yeah, this is going to be a very scary push, and I don't think the Indian player can handle this kind of push from the Dutch player.
yep.
Yeah, this is going to lose the consulate as well, and I'm guessing he's going to lose this barracks, and he's going to lose his entire presence in the middle of the map. And look at how many resources that opens up for the Dutch player. These two massive hunts, this coin mine in the middle of the map. Granted, it only has about 800 coin left in it, but it really allows the Dutch player to expand out of his base and get some of those precious resources.
Yep. Oh, we missed this, but he did manage to age up here, and he has aged up with Charm in our gate, which gives him access to Mansabdar units, which gives aura to units of the same type, thereby increasing their attack and HP. So, and one
Do you
thing,
think? Do
one
you
thing
think
is,
that age up came in soon enough, or is it too late?
if well, if I'm being honest and blunt, then I would say that the age up is still quite late, and the composition of Dutch player is simply very good right now. He has enough amount of hussars. There is good amount of skirmishers, good amount of rioters. So
And there are more Dutch reinforcements coming down the map all the time. And oh, look at this great raid. He's going to lose about 5 or 6 villagers with these 3 veteran hussars.
yeah,
Excellent job by Prince of Kabul. And going to draw all these Zambraks away from his base. And that was an excellent raid by Prince of Kabul.
yeah. So basically, at this point, I think India needs 2 shipments before India decides to take the fight, and that is 3 Mahat Lancers and 7 Urumis. So that
Oh, these Zambraks really got to get back, or else these hussars are just going to waste these Gurkhas.
yeah. Positioning is quite good for India though, because a lot of pathing issues for hussars, but simply too much mass for the Dutch player.
Right. But at the same time, the Prince of Kabul has put himself in an excellent position with his skirmishers to take out these Zambraks. And look how quickly that massive Zambraks has fallen. And, the Gurkhas are being wasted as well. There is this disciplined Mahu, but he's taking a lot of damage from the Reuters. Going to go down. There it is. And, oh, but out come the 2 disciplined Mahouts. They're going to come on right on top of the skirmishers. The Reuters got to get on top of that. But it looks like they're going to be able to take out 1 Mahu without much trouble. And, yeah, just too much from the Dutch player here. Oh, man, those Reuters. And that is the game.
Yep, Prince of Kabul moving to round number 8. And this is probably the first time we saw India losing. Oh no, it was Eagle Met also lost against Griffins. So yeah, but still a very low lose rate for India on this map. India is definitely a very good civilization. But I think in the end it's just experience and Prince of Kabul being an overall better player that came into effect here. So
yeah, I think there were just a couple of fights there where the Dutch, I think at the beginning initially, the decision by the Indian player to leave the Dutch's base and retreat and allow him to kind of rebuild his mass was a little bit of a mistake there, because once the Dutch hit that Fortress Age power spike, he was able to effectively deal with the Cav mass of India and really just build this huge economy, get his market upgrades, replenish his skirmishers, start training veteran hussars. The Dutch player was just allowed to really tap into his strengths.
yep. So